Welcome back to Clear Picture Cares, your go-to podcast to learn more about nonprofits and charities here in the Low Country and the work that they're doing to serve our community. With me today, I have Laura Moss. She is the executive director at NAMI, and I really want to just get into the conversation because there's so much that we got to cover in the next 20 minutes. Let's listen to the star of the show, not me.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. What is NAMI? What is NAMI and what does it do for the Low Country?
Well, NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and we are the largest grassroots organization in the United States, which means that we are formed by the people for the people. And what we do is we provide supports for family members or individuals dealing with mental health conditions.
So when I'm thinking of support for family members or people themselves that are suffering from mental health conditions, the first thing that comes to mind from as a financial planner is my retired clients. They have that major life change, but I can't also help but think of those in like grade school, high school, first to college, like major life events. Can you speak to us about how mental health could be impacting more than just what I went to, which is my clients in retirement, but how it impacts the overall population?
Well, first of all, we are huge believers in the fact that we all have mental health just like we all have physical health. It's not an option. And you have to take care of your mental health just like you do your physical health. And as you were alluding to with the momentous occasions in our lives or the milestones in our lives or events that come up, that's across the board. Whether you're a child or you're retiring, everybody has those moments of who am I now? Where am I going? What is my purpose? And all of those life events, whether it's even a good life event, a positive event, definitely impacts our mental health because it's a change, and it's a change that we don't know how to navigate. And so we're sometimes scared of that life change, and that definitely then impacts our mental health.
Now, NAMI's been in the Low Country since 1991, so y'all been around for a while. So we're grateful that you're here today to share more about the work that y'all are doing. So when I hear like we support family members, we support those who are going through the mental health challenge, what does that kind of look like?
Well, it comes in many different forms. It's not just one way, because not everything fits every person's need. And so we actually have supports in the area and throughout the state for youth through the end of life, really, as far as age goes. And so what we do is for our youth, because I also work at the state level as the director for Youth Centered Awareness and Education. And so my heart is with our, definitely our youth also. We provide supports in the school systems. We have programs that we bring into the schools to talk to our youth about, as they call them, warning signs. If you notice something in yourself or in a friend, that something isn't right. I like to call them invitations to talk to friends instead of warning signs, just because it then relates to them on a different level. As far as we also offer supports for teachers and parents in the schools through our programming for our youth. And then as youth age out into adulthood, then we have programs. We do have some different classes that we offer, and support groups. We have support groups for individuals experiencing mental health crises or conditions. That is our connections group. And then we also have family to family, where the families who are taking care of a loved one that has a mental health condition or diagnosis, they can go to a support group and share with one another what's working, what's not working, and share their stories, feel heard.
So they're getting help through NAMI directly. It sounds like it's customized specifically to them, and
Mhm.
what's helping them to reach their own personal mental health goals. But then there's also a community aspect within the group setting. Can you share more about that community aspect and group setting?
For the support
Yeah.
groups, well, for the community aspect of that is that anybody who has a loved one or a family member that is dealing with a mental health crises, they all come together. We have both virtual and in person, so whichever one you're more comfortable with,
Hmm.
and they sit around, and we do have facilitators from NAMI that are there to help facilitate the group, but it's just about the families and the individuals sharing. Maybe they can talk about, a group home. A lot of parents are looking for group homes for their adult children. They can talk about which ones have worked or which ones had, better conditions than others. And or just ideas of how they got their adult children to take their medications, because that can be a big problem when dealing with an adult. So just sharing those ideas, the firsthand experience of it, rather than somebody saying, here's a piece of paper, go figure it out, read these step-by-step directions. Because yes, that can, be an initial first step. But when you can actually sit down and talk to somebody and know that somebody is there for you, that you are not alone in this, situation or in this life event, that makes a huge difference.
There was something that you said earlier, which I mean, I want to draw out to our audience. There's a difference between being alone and feeling lonely. Can you walk us through what that is?
Sure. Being alone is when you have no supports, when you have nobody to go to or anyone to check on you, that you don't have any resources at all, in your back pocket, so to speak, to help you.
Hmm.
Being lonely is a feeling of not having anybody. You may actually have family checking on you, or wanting to know how you are, but that's not always an easy thing to accept, that somebody wants to help you and you may need help. So you feel alone in it when you feel lonely, I should say, when you think, how am I going to get out of this? There's nobody there, as opposed to being alone and there is nobody there to help you.
I can't help but think about like perspective. Growing up, mental health issues was, I think we talked about it before. It was like padded rooms and straitjackets. It was just the
Yes.
way it was, and it was
Yep.
that stigma associated with it.
Absolutely.
How is our society working away from that, and where are we at now with and how we view and work towards mental health issues?
Yeah. Well, we're definitely much further than we were even, oh goodness, I'm going to age myself here, 35 years ago. Um, because back in the 80s, when I was in college, in a different state, I had a plan to commit suicide. And back then, definitely, it was not anything I could go to my parents about, because, like you said, it was about the padded rooms and, being locked away and then not seeing anybody. Or at least that was the idea of what
Hmm.
it was, back then. They didn't have the counselors at schools and things like that, the resources. Fast forward to about 15 years ago, when my son was in junior high, he attempted suicide. And, for one, I always thought because I had attempted it, I would be able to recognize those signs in my children or anyone else because I had been through it. And that was not the case. Now, when we were dealing with him, just 15 years ago, it was automatically, oh, let's put him on medication. And so then I had to fight for getting counseling and behavioral therapies, things like that, which have been around, but it wasn't offered right away. It was just, let's medicate and, they'll be
Let's go.
okay.
Let's medicate first, and then focus on this on the back
Yes,
end.
there was still no support for the parents, outside of his counselor. Here, drop him off at his counseling appointment and go, type of thing. Now, fast forward another 15 years here to present day, there are the supports out there. There are the groups like NAMI. Yes, NAMI was around, back then, even when my son had attempted suicide, but we didn't know about them as readily as we do now. And so now, at least, it's still a stigma for many individuals. Certain, core groups still have a stigma around mental health, but it's at least opening up the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what we're trying to do, even in the high schools, opening up that conversation. We have a sports program that we do in the high schools where we have a mental health night, and it's called Go Lime Green, because lime green is the color for mental health.
Okay.
Ugly color, but
it shows.
You can't forget it.
Yeah.
Put it that way. Okay. And so why we do that is to bring the conversation to the community on a level that has our students, that has the parents, that has staff, that has other community members there. And that's the whole message, to start the conversation, because a lot of times that's the hardest part.
And there's people watching right now and listening. You yourself might be going through a mental health issue. This is where we want you to take that step, right? Seek that help. We're going to share our website here in a moment, but below wherever you're listening or seeing us, there's websites, there's links to websites to NAMI, so that you could then explore and learn more and take that step to move forward. But also, there's also people watching and listening right now that they're maybe thinking of a family member or a coworker, just someone in their social life that they're going, you know what? I'm not an expert, but at least I could go to this website and see if I could learn more and maybe help that person seek the help and support that they're looking for. What are the websites that they could go to learn more and start that step in that journey?
Well, we have our website here for the Charleston area, which is NAMICharlestonarea.org. And then we also have our state site, which is NAMISC for South Carolina.org. And on both websites, you can find out about local programming, plus some of the state organizations. We do have, even at the state, it's called Family Match, where families can be matched with another family that is going through the exact same type of diagnoses for their loved one. And then almost like a pen pal, not to age myself, but yes, pen pals did exist.
Yes, they did.
There are just different programs that can be offered even statewide, because this is not just a low country condition. Mental health is everywhere. And so, they can use that. But, and also, like you said, somebody may be feeling that they are possibly in crisis and don't know what to do, but they may also have a loved one that is in crises, like you said. And it's about, like I said, starting that conversation. And sometimes, especially with our children or our older parents, older adults, sitting at a table across from them is not always the way to do it. Sometimes we need to think outside the box a little bit, make them comfortable. One thing I do with my kids, and we talk to the students about, it's called wall talks. Now, as I get older, it's a little more difficult, but we lay on the floor and you put your legs up on the wall. And I have teenage sons at home right now. And I got the kind of teenage sons that don't talk. That's somehow I got
don't know
those.
what she's talking about.
I know, right? You were never one of those.
No.
And so we put a bowl of candy between us, and I always pick their favorite one. Unfortunately, it's always a sour type candy.
Gotcha.
But they can have a piece of candy or whatever they choose every time they tell me about something that's going on in their lives, or something that they're concerned about, or something that didn't feel so good during the week. And I just find that starts that conversation. We get a pizza, do floor pizza. You eat pizza on the floor instead of at the table.
I love it. Shake it up a little bit and create a different environment
Yes.
that could open up. I always
Yes.
notice with my 10-year-old daughter, she would start telling me about her day right when I put her down for bed.
She wants to delay going to bed.
That's what it really.
But you have to take advantage of
Oh,
those.
it's gold, right?
Yes.
And I only care if she just talks to one of us. I don't have to be the only person, but if she talks to me or Rachel, as long as she's talking to one of us,
Yes.
and we keep that open dialogue and that
Yes.
place for comfort. But then, like, I'm seeing like statistics, and I don't know. I'm gonna ask the expert. That's why we have you here. Of like high schoolers facing mental health issue. This just seems like a growing issue, or maybe it's always been there. We're just now identifying this is an issue. What are some of the statistics you could share with us?
Well, for our youth in particular, between the ages of 12 and 24, we still consider the age of 24 in our youth, young adult category. 1 in 4 in their lifetime will experience a mental health crisis, and 1 in 10 will attempt suicide. And those are numbers from about 2 years ago. I know that the numbers are higher, now. It's really sad. And our youth is our future. And for them to feel so much pressure and so much anxiety, that ending their lives is the only option, is just heartbreaking.
Well, I mean, we're talking about your children. We're talking about your grandchildren. We're talking about your neighbor that has children. This is a community impact. And this is why we wanted to make sure we talked about this. I can only imagine working and volunteering at NAMI. Like, okay, so I'm just thinking like there's a group session. There's a lot of great work that's being done from other people going through a similar situation. But here I am volunteering, and it's like I'm pouring all this into the group. What is it like for the volunteers at NAMI and the people that work at NAMI?
Well, it really does when you're, working with us, whether it's on a volunteer basis or employment basis, it gives you a sense of community. It provides you, the friendships. And again, I know I keep saying, but it goes back to that, you don't feel alone then. And that can carry somebody through a really big moment. Is when you know that you're not alone. And so whether it's a volunteer or you're employed by us, it's all the same work.
And is there a criteria that someone has to have in order to volunteer or work at NAMI?
Well, to be employed by NAMI, or to be a facilitator in one of our groups, which is not a paid
But they're doing it because of the love and the passion for this topic,
yes,
right?
And the experience that they've, that they have experienced themselves. Yes, to do that, you do have to have either a lived experience, whether it's yourself with a mental health diagnosis or a loved one, which, just it's then that passion and that personalization and that understanding that they can provide, that we can provide for the community. When it's one thing again to, you can read a book, you can even read all the stats on everything, but it's not the same as experiencing something. And so that's why it is a criteria to work for us. Now, can anybody, volunteer that, hasn't had a lived experience? Yes. But I feel that everybody has, on some level, known somebody that has experienced a mental health crisis.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned before we got started going through the mud.
In the mud together.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Share with us what in the mud together.
That's a personal one, for me, because, and just give me a moment when I was going through this with my son, when he was in junior high, all I wanted to do was get him out of it. I would have done anything to get him out of it. Because I thought, oh, being his parent, that's my job. I have to do this for him. He's not capable. He's 14. And so it took time, but I realized that supporting him was the best thing I could do. So in the mud together is I will stand with you in the mud, but I can't take you out of the mud. That was for him to do. That was a decision of his own, and only he could figure that out. So even we have a NAMI walk coming up this Saturday in Mount Pleasant, and we have walk teams, and my walk team is in the mud together because I feel that that's just a great analogy. We're stuck in that mud, and it doesn't feel good, and it's cold, and it's uncomfortable, but excuse my language, damn it, I'm going to stand in there with you. Mm-hmm. And, we're going to do this together as far as support, but you're going to have to actually get yourself out.
I really appreciate you sharing that, not just a slogan, but the way of thinking about the work that you're doing. And like I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're in the mud right now, if you know someone that's in the mud, there's people that will stand in that mud with you and help you with the tools and resources so that you could get yourself out of that mud. They're going to get dirty with you. They're going to get in the mud with you. It's going to get uncomfortable. Yeah, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
When I did Rise Up Kings, it's a faith-based organization for men who own businesses. Okay. Now, Rise Up Kings, don't get mad at me. I'll only share this one part. We're not supposed to talk about a lot of this stuff, but we did climb through the mud. And again and again and again and again. And when you think they were going to say stop, we kept on going. And I couldn't help but when you sharing that approach and that thought process of Rise Up Kings, of how we went through the mud together, but we ourselves had to go through it. We had people around us, but we had to get ourselves out of the mud and go back and go do it again. Yeah. Stick with us because we're going to continue on. We don't cut off a conversation just because of time. We let the conversation flow. So if you're sticking with us right now, we got gold for you on the other half of this conversation. Can you share with us any stories or the people that you served through NAMI that would be really good to share with our listeners today?
Sure. Well, we have. What has resonated the most with me is when even I've been with the youth. I was presenting at a HOSA conference, which is a statewide conference for teens that are in the HOSA group. And I had students come up to me afterwards crying, male students who, as you know, a lot of times are not comfortable showing emotion. And so just thanking me for letting them know that they're not alone, that I myself have gone through things, because I do share with these students my experience of having a suicide plan in college, and how I felt as though I was limited in life, so why go on? And it took me to realize that I wasn't limited, just needed to find a different way to meet my goals. And even when we were dealing with the families that will call and, their loved one, their adult child has been released from the hospital after having a mental health, prognosis or diagnosis, and they don't know where to go. Because again, they've been handed a piece of paper that says, here, make sure they take their meds every 4 hours. And so helping them to find housing for their loved one, and because they don't know where to go, and and still, it doesn't matter what age your child is. It doesn't matter. My oldest is 35. You still worry about them. And so to help them find comfort in knowing that they're doing the best thing that they can for their child, and then to also offer them the support of a support group to where they can talk to other parents about it, or other family members, is just, it's just amazing. And that's the goal, is to let them, know that they're, again, not in this alone.
So we also have listeners right now that, of course, they thought about maybe themselves or people that they know. We have other listeners that are going, okay, I'm chomping at the bit. You got to help me. How do I get involved? What would you share with our listeners about what is needed at NAMI? How can they get involved? Where would they go to learn more to then get involved? What is needed at NAMI? Usually you don't ask 5 questions in a podcast, but you know what I'm getting at. Share with those listeners that are going, okay, this cause is near and dear to my heart. Where do I go to get involved?
Right. Well, our websites are the easiest place,
Okay.
definitely to find out ways of getting involved, or to even find out our support groups. We also have several resource pages. If somebody would, rather just look on a website rather than speak to someone, you can also call the office, and we will get back to you and help you that way. But we do have different events in the community, such as our NAMI walk, and we're going to be starting quarterly fundraisers in different community areas, so we can reach everybody. Instead of just doing a walk once a year, we want to be out there more in the community. And so those events will be on our website, on our calendar.
Okay,
also.
wonderful. So they could volunteer at those events. They could then join those events and be part of the group.
Absolutely.
And we'll have a
Yes.
good time with the walk that's coming up, NAMI walk coming up this Saturday. I couldn't help but think as we were talking about my cousin. So when Rachel and I got married, we got married in Cleveland, Ohio. For the best place on earth. Okay.
Except in the winter.
We could be a little biased, right?
We could be.
It was at that courtyard downtown, that near the football field. But Rachel had 56 first cousins, and I have one. And the one that I had, it was easy for me to take a photo with him on our wedding day. But he suffered from mental health issues, and he ended up passing away really early on in his life. And it still impacts the entire family. And then there was some good that came. There's always good I felt and I could come from tragedy. My sister got her master's in mental health, and she now serves her community in the Denver area, helping them with their mental health. I couldn't help but draw that connection. I've never spoken to my sister about why she did that, but I couldn't help but think about how close she was to our cousin. That could have been like a catalyst to go that path. And like the stories that you shared with us, the catalyst that you had to then be involved, and other people that work there. Just want to thank you and everyone that works at NAMI. Now, I do want to ask my favorite question of the entire podcast. Okay. This is just something the answers I hear are always just spoken from the heart and authentic. And it's one of my favorite questions. It's if you could leave our listeners an impression about the importance of giving back to the community, what would that be?
That's hard because I think it's an individual thing for everybody. How they view, giving back. I don't really think that there's just, one impression necessarily. I think it's an individual thing where anything you do within your community that serves the community, wherever it's at, will make a difference in somebody's life.
So it's about what is your purpose? What is the thing that you want to put attention to?
Yes.
That can make an impact on one person's life.
Yes, because if it's something that, means something to you, then it's going to mean something to somebody else. You're going to have heart in it, you're going to have soul in it, and you're going to have passion in it.
I couldn't have said any better. I mean, what a great way to wrap up a conversation. For those that are sticking around, what I want you to do is definitely go to the websites, check them out. Okay. We're going to have those links below, easy for you to access. If you're driving, just get to where you're going safely, then access it when you get there. Okay. Just want to thank you for the work that you're doing, Laura, and the work that NAMI is doing as well. It's going to be a great NAMI walk coming up this weekend, and go to the website for other future events as well, so you can check it out. Again, my name is Jason Noble, the host of Clear Picture Cares. Thank you for tuning in, and be well until next time.